this video, I'm going to show you guys how to make Playfield light maps using Blender Toolkit. We'll just be doing the Playfield light maps, and that'll enable you to utilize the really cool dynamic shadow capability that's available in 10.8 now. This is also kind of a nice little introduction to Toolkit. We're not going to be doing a full bake here. We're just doing light maps for the Playfield. I'd recommend that you first install Blender 4.1 and update to the latest toolkit files. So I opened a new Blender file and I'm going to save it right away into my working directory. We're going to be using Uncle Polly's Fathom in this project. First step is to import that. I've already saved it in my working directory. Just click the import button and import. Okay, after a minute, the whole scene is imported, which includes, the table and the VR room. But when Toolkit imports stuff, it tries to figure out what you want to see and what you want to hide. So within the scene collection, there are sub-collections. One of them is import hidden. So I'm just going to actually hide that from the viewport. And you can see that, what's left is mostly what you want. But there's still stuff in here that I want to hide. So I'm going to select those and press M to move. Select the VPX import hidden collection. So we'll just do that with a bunch of things that I don't want. So importantly, in the overlay collection, we definitely want to hide the Playfield insert outline, which is like a flasher or something in the original table. But that covers up the Playfield, and we don't want to cover up the Playfield because the Playfield is what we're interested in casting light on. In this overlay collection, there's also the flipper shadows, so we want to move those. Now in this project, we're interested in casting light on just the Playfield. We don't want anything like any of the movables to cast shadows, so we don't want. Let's see. Let's go to the movables collection, select all of those, and move them to hidden. And I notice here that the flippers are still there. They must be in a different collection, but let's hide those as well. Okay, let's see what this looks like when we click the render viewport. Oh, viewport shading looks pretty bad. I think it's because the HDRI is not so great. So I'm gonna come down here and turn on my shader editor. I'll go to the world. Pressing the home button zooms in, and I'm just gonna change my environmental image to something else. I've already downloaded a bunch of these HDRIs. I'll post a link to where you can get them for free. And in this case, I'll use Bank Vault 4K. That looks pretty good. Oh, this is going really slow. I just realized that I need to change my device to GPU compute under the render tab over here. Much faster, and the denoiser really helps. I guess in Blender 4.1 there's some pretty cool denoiser technology that speeds things up. This is looking pretty bright, so I'm gonna I'm interested in just looking at the lights. I'm gonna hit the 0 for the background color, and we still have a bunch of stuff that we don't want. So I'm only interested in the GI lights. I'm going to put them in their own collection. So right click, create a new collection. Let's call it GI. Drag that into VLM.lights. And I'm only interested in these GI lights. The ones that say top here are, if you were to look in the VPX file, I guess those lights are for illuminating the plastic tops. But I just want to keep the actual bulb lights. Let's move those into the GI collection. Now I'm going to disable the all lights collection. Make sure to uncheck the little camera icon, which means it won't show up in your final renders. And if you uncheck the eyeball, that means it just won't show up in your viewport. All right. So one important thing about the GI collection is that we want to make this split. So under the collection tab, make it split. That means that each light is going to be rendered separately, and we can use the light maps separately from within VPX when they're split. Another thing, if we click on one of those lights, come in, and with the cursor in the viewport, press the N key. That brings up this menu. Clicking on the VLM tab, you can see that each light has a VPX light name, and it's equivalent to the name that's shown in this this tree view over here, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. This VPX light name, though, is what will be used when we're creating the light maps, and when the light maps are exported to VPX, those light maps will be associated with this particular light name in VPX. So it's important that these names match the GI lights in VPX. If you wanted to group together some lights, you can give them, like, say, GI 001 and GI 002. Let's say I wanted to group those together and have them both be controlled by GI 001 in VPX. Well, I would just make sure they both have the name GI 001. And then the toolkit will actually combine their light maps into a single light map that will be controlled by the GI 001 light in VPX. So, but for now, I'm going to keep everything separated so we can use them separately in VPX, and VPX will cast dynamic shadows for each light independently. Now there's this world collection. It's a special collection. It's set up to be a solid collection, and it's got this world property which points to the HDRI that we set up. If I keep this enabled, then toolkit will generate bake maps and export those. Those are basically objects that are only lit by the HDRI environmental image, but actually don't really care about that in this project because I just want to export light maps only. So I'm going to disable that completely. I want the parts in this project to influence the light paths, like cast shadows and such, but I don't care about baking those. Let's see. So I want to select everything in this collection called parts and disable the bake. So there's this bake enabled, and I clicked it, and now it says bake disabled. Same thing goes for the overlay collection. Disabling all the bakes in that collection. I'm going to leave the Playfield part with the bake enabled. So if I were to unclick that, that would disable the bake, but I'm just going to leave it enabled, even though I don't really think it matters because I turned off the world light. So we're not going to be creating any bake maps, but I don't know. I'm just going to leave that on for now because I'm going to be, baking light maps for the Playfield. Next step is I'm going to the scene tab over here, and I want to check that the light mapper settings are good. Oh, well, I should probably make sure that the camera setup is okay. So coming back up to the VPX import hidden, I think the camera's in there. I'll just click on that little camera icon and press M to move it. I'm just going to put it in the main scene so I have easy access to it. In the viewport, if I press the 0 key, it shows me the camera view. And you can see that its bounds are extended far beyond the playfield, so I want to tighten that up a little bit. Move the focal length in and shift along Y a little bit. That looks pretty good. Okay, coming back to the scene tab. Under the VPX Light Mapper area, let's set the render height to 4K and texture size to 8K. I'm going to make my max lights 12 because I know I have enough memory for that. I don't think back face setting matters in this case, but I think that's good. So let's save this and definitely make sure that you toggle on the system console window. Otherwise, you'll just get a spinning ball and not know what's going on once you start baking stuff. I think you could probably batch all at this point, but I'm gonna do it step by step. So let's first click on groups. Toolkit renders from the camera point of view, and if there are objects that are layered on top of each other, that won't work because you know, the camera will not see stuff that's underneath other objects. So Toolkit figures out how to separate things so that nothing overlaps, and it puts those objects into groups so that when it does a batch render, it can render efficiently. Okay, that was pretty quick. And this is such a simple, small project. I think things are going to go pretty fast. Let's click on renders next. Okay, you can see that it's actually batch rendering several lights all at once. And it'll do these like mini batches until it's complete. So I'll let this go for a few minutes. Looks like it took about 19 minutes to do all those. Next step is meshes. The meshes happen real quick. So what do we have here? You can see in the VLM results collection now there's some there's some objects, and these are all the light maps. You can tell by the LM prefix here. We have no bake maps. The bake maps would have the BM prefix. It looks like there are 29 light maps because there's 29 GI lights, and we have them all split out. If we wanted to, we can load the renders for each of these and see what they look like. So first I'm going to turn off everything else. And since there's only a few of these, I think I have enough memory to load all the renders. Okay, we want to actually look at these in material preview mode. And here we go. That looks pretty good. Let's just look at one at a time real quick. hide those and let's turn on one. Okay, so here's like the light coming from this bottom right corner of the playfield. That's pretty cool. The next step is to create the nest maps. Now, because currently all of the renders are separate images. If you go into the renders folder, you can see them all. But we want to nest them all together into a single optimized image that can be imported into VPX. So clicking nest maps will start that process. And this can take a while, but I'm guessing for such a simple project, it won't take too long. Okay, that was actually really quick. It only took 2 minutes. I think that's probably because we have no overlapping parts at all. It's just one big flat playfield. Last step is to export. So it's going to export to this table that we imported. Also, you want to be sure that you have export mode to default. Otherwise, you may lose some of the primitives that already exist in the VPX file when you export. And we're done. I'm going to save this and close Blender and then open up VPX. So first, we imported this file, but when we export, it creates a new file with the VLM suffix at the end. I'm going to copy that into my tables folder. Let's see what we have here. Okay, you can see at the very bottom of the layers list, there's a new layer called VLM.Lightmaps, and that's what houses all of these guys. And if we go into the image manager, you can see down here that it has imported, looks like 2 nest maps. So those nest maps contain all the light map textures. Let's just look at one of these light maps. So this light map is, you can see in the name, starts with LM for light map, and GI corresponds to the collection name within the VLM lights collection in Blender. And in that collection, we had all of our GI lights, and you can see the GI light name next. So this is GI 001. And then the last part of the name is the object which that light map applies to. So the playfield. So all we have here are playfield light maps. Clicking on this one, you can see in the light map dropdown, it is associated with the VPX light called GI001. So that means let's turn on the GI layer. So GI001 is, so here's GI001. Now, for all of these GI lights that are going to be used to control the light maps, we want to make sure that all of those have the ray traced ball shadows checked. And with that checked, that's all you need to do to get the dynamic shadows. So I'm going to do that for all of them. Let's select all of those. Turn on the ray traced ball shadow checkbox. And we don't need to see these anymore because we have light maps for them. So I'm going to make them type hidden. Generally, I also like to have the fader set to incandescent. It just fades in a more realistic fading curve. One other thing we want to do is turn off the old GI bakes. So, because the light maps are going to completely replace this now, I'm just going to make that not visible. All right, well, let's see what this looks like. Okay, something's obviously wrong. um, the visibility of some of the stuff is not correct. We're seeing the light maps though. Let's just see if we are getting any shadows. Yep, definitely getting some shadows. They're quite long. So one issue might be that the GI lights are too low, you know, because the shadow projection is based on the three-dimensional position of the GI light center. It calculates the shadow of the ball relative to that point. So we might want to raise them a little bit. And I'm also thinking, I don't really know what I did wrong on the export, but what we can do is we can just go back and open up our original Fathom file and just copy and paste these light maps into them along with the nest maps. So in lieu of spending time figuring out what I did wrong, I think that's just the quickest fix. So let's open this is the one I downloaded. I just renamed it _A earlier. Okay. So go to the VLM file. Let's select all the light maps. Copy. I'm going to create a new layer and just paste them into there. And just to be consistent, let's rename this VLM.lightmaps. And going back to this file, go to the image manager. I'm going to select the two nest maps, use name on export. Let's just export those to my working directory. Okay, I think I can close this file now. And back to our original file. Let's import these nest maps. And let's just check one real quick. Yep, it still has the light map property. And I'm going to go back to the GI, select elements. I'm going to hide these ray trace ball shadows, and let's make this, I don't know, 28. So it's a little bit above the center of the ball. Save it. Let's see what this looks like. Oh, wait, I need to turn off the GI bakes. Okay, we're not seeing them. There's one more thing that I think it could be. Playfield inserts outlines. See, this is at a position of 0.3. So I'm going to make the light maps a little higher than those. We're playing in the sandbox here. Let's make those 0.4. All right. Anyways, I think that's the process. It's not super user friendly, but it could be worse. And I'm sure that there are ways to improve the process. This is just my first go at it. Hey, look at that. Anyways, have fun, guys. We'll see you next time.